Okay, welcome to week 12, and we are continuing Excel, working more with formulas and functions. So we're going to be talking about some specific functions, including the sum and some other functions and the payment function. We are also going to be looking at the absolute cell references as opposed to the relative cell references, which we've already seen, and a little bit about name ranges. Your assignment, there is a grader project that you are going to complete. And again, the grader project, you can submit and resubmit. You can do it multiple times. You can look at the sum report to see what you did wrong and go back and redo that. You're going to read chapter 2 and go through the interactive video tutorial. And then from the e-textbook, the hands-on exercises 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then submit the last one that you did to the Canvas link. So I am going to go to one of the workbooks that I've opened, and we're going to look at some basic formulas. Now in this one, we have a markup percentage, and we want to figure out for these particular products what we charged for them, what the cost and the sales and our profit were. So in the price, I want to take the markup percentage and multiply it times the price. Now, when I do this, what I'm going to get is I am going to get the markup percent the first time, or the markup amount. So if I just do the markup percent times, the cost, that's going to tell me, first of all, how much I'm going to mark it up. So the price is actually going to be 128% of the cost. So I need to alter that formula to add 1 to that percentage. So I'm just going to go in here, add a +1, and hit enter. Now what I wanted to illustrate with this is not the right price, because we say we're going to mark it up $10. What we need to do is it's actually taking 1 times B6 and then adding B3. So it's only adding 28 cents to that. So what I want to do is force it to do this addition first before the multiplication. That's because of the algebraic order of precedence. What we have to remember about that, it's a lot of rules, but if you remember that multiplication and division are done in a formula left to right before addition and subtraction, that'll help. So I'm going to put parentheses around this part of my formula to force it to add those two numbers first before it multiplies. Okay, now I got the correct price. So now I'm going to copy it. Now this isn't going to work. You can see I've got value and things like this, but this is a good thing to remember. If you put the formula in, it works perfectly, and then it doesn't work, it's probably because you need an absolute cell reference. And if I look at this formula, I can see these are the 2 cells I'm using. If I go to my next one, it dropped down. I'm not using that 28%. And each one, it keeps dropping down. So it's telling me that that 28% needs to be fixed or absolute. Now, ways that I can do it, I can just type a $sign in front of each of those. So I could go ahead and type that in, and that would make that a fixed or absolute cell reference. I can also use the F4 function key to do that for me. Every time I hit F4, it moves the $signs around. So I just hit it till I have it the way I want it. And all we're going to be concerned about is making the whole thing fixed. I can do that, and that will fix that. Now what I'm going to notice then is when I copy this, I'm going to get correct values, because any of those I go to, it now uses the correct 28%. Okay, then I'm going to do just some basic formulas, and I'm not going to show every one of these. For the total cost, I'm just going to take the cost times the numbers sold. So that's a fairly easy formula. My total sales is just going to be the price times the total sold. And my profit is just going to be the difference between those. So I'm going to take total sales minus what it cost me. That's going to tell me what I made. So those were all fairly straightforward, simple formulas. Copy those down. Now the next thing I wanted to do is a function. And I'm just going to do a couple of these to just show you. But I want to add all of these numbers together. Now I could put in equal E6 plus E7 plus E8 plus E9 plus E10. But you can tell from just talking about it, that's a lot of typing, and I would probably miss something. A lot of room for error. Is there an easier way to add numbers together? We do that so much that it actually has its own button and its own function. So if I look, this is my auto sum button right here, just this little E. If I click on that, look what it does. It says you want to sum, so sum is the name of the function, E6 through E16. Now there's a blank cell, and I typically, if I have a blank row, I leave that in there because that lets me add rows after that if I need to. But it summed those together. And I get the answer right away with a lot less typing and fewer mistakes. There's also some other functions that are similar to that. The average, and if I click this little E here, the average, the min, and the max are also good ones to know. Average gives me the average of all the numbers. It does not average in blank cells. It does average in zeros. It will find, minimum will find the lowest value in that range of numbers, and maximum will find the highest value in that range of numbers. So those are all statistical functions right there on that front toolbar that are easy to use. Now look at another function. And this is an amortization table, and we're going to do these again next week because you have some that you're going to do. But I want to look at a function that maybe you don't use as often, and this is the PMT function. Now, there are literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of functions in Excel. All functions are pre-programmed formulas. Can go to my formula tab. It has them all grouped together so you can find different ones. But I have a couple in here that I'm going to show you. So let's look at this first one. This is the APR. I have a table that I put in the number of years. I talked to the bank, and this is the loan rates that they were giving me. Now, I don't know what I want to use, and I want to be able to say, let me change this and see what happens. What if I do 3 years and have it change the rate and the payment and all of that so I can tell what that is? So I'm going to put that back to 4. How did I get that? Well, what I used is a VLOOKUP function. Now I'm just going to hit this FX, which brings up that function so we can look at that. For any function, you don't have to remember everything you want to do with it, because it has a helper. This is a helper that helps you with the function. Now, I wanted to look up a value in a table. So here's my table or my array, and I need to look up a value. So I'm going to be looking up the number of years here, and then I'm going to pull the corresponding APR from that table. So this is what this looks up. It says, well, what value do you want to look up? So what I said is I want to look up cell B8, or the number of years. So that's what I have here is the number of years, and that's what it's going to look up in this table. And then the table array, what I did with this is I just selected those arrays that are in there and that particular table. So the columns and rows. Notice I didn't include the title. And then it wanted to know which column index. Now, just for help down here, it says column index number is the column number in the table from which the matching value would be returned. The first column value in the table is column 1. So that's column 1. This is column 2. This is where I wanted to pull that value. And then notice down here tells me the result. If I have any errors in what I'm looking up, it's going to tell me here. So I'm just going to say OK, and that puts that in. Okay, now I'm going to do the payment function. So I don't really know what I want. So I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to do insert function. Now I can just type payment and go, and it will find functions related to payment. Now I can go through all these, but notice down here tells me what each one of these does. So it calculates the payment for a loan based on a constant payment, which I'm going to do, and a constant interest rate. So it's not going to change. So I'm going to say, okay, that's what I want. And here's my function helper asking me what I want. It says rate is the interest rate per period of the loan. Now here it says an example, 6% divided by 4 is a quarterly payment at 6%. Well, my percentage is right here, but this is an APR, an annual percentage rate, and I'm going to pay monthly. So I'm going to just have to divide that by 12 to get the right interest rate per month. Okay, then number of periods. I know I'm going to make 12 payments a year, and my loan is 4 years. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to click on this cell. Now remember, we don't want to use any values in a formula or a function that might change. So that 4 might change. But that 12, I can use 12 because that will never change. We'll always have 12 months in a year. And that's going to give me my 48 payments, so that's working good. Now, present value, this is the total amount that a series of payments is worth to me now. So that's the amount I want to finance up here. However, notice I'm getting a negative value down here. That's because what it's worth to me now is actually a debt. So that is negative $7,000, what it's worth to me now. And it's telling me that this is going to be the result. And that makes sense. $161 makes sense for that. So I'm just going to click OK. By the way, I'm not putting anything in here. Notice they're not in bold. These are optional fields if they're not bolded, because the future value is going to be 0 on a loan, and the type is just, do you want beginning or end of the month? So I'm going to click OK, and that does that payment for me. So that's another couple of functions you can look at, but any function you can figure out because it tells you what fields it needs or what arguments. Okay, I'm going to do one more short one on the grader project. So I will have a second video for this that will show you that.